Okay, this video has to do with the idea of syntax. We already covered diction, which is the author's choice of words. Syntax is how those words are combined to form sentences. So what order they're put in, not necessarily definition-wise, but the word idea of the order has a meaning, has a reason behind it for what the author's doing. The first review point we have here is the sentence types. There are four main types of sentences: declarative, interrogative, exclamatory, and imperative. Declarative ends with a period or sometimes an exclamation mark. We're declaring information. It's everyday sentences, sentence we speak the most. Interrogative obviously and asks a question, so it ends in a question mark. Exclamatory is you're emphasizing something, you're shouting, you're screaming, you're giving emotion to it, so it's going to end in an exclamation mark. And the last one we have is imperative. You're giving a command. You're telling someone not to do something, or you're telling someone to do something. If it ends with a question mark and in your imperative you're asking someone to do something, you're not commanding, you're asking. So thus the interrogative. Okay, getting into the more hard part of syntax. To begin with, you need to understand this idea of clauses. Clauses are made up as a group of words that contains a subject and a verb while expressing a complete thought. So we have two different types of clauses. We have independent and we have dependent. Independent means that it can stand on its own. It doesn't need any more information. It has a subject, it has a verb, it's a complete thought, it's a sentence. Example, Jamie studied for his English test. Jamie would be our subject, studied would be our verb. What did he study for? His English test. So it's complete thought. You don't need any more information. Okay, whereas a dependent clause, it's still a group of words, it still has a subject and a verb, but it does not express a complete thought. It has something attached to it called a conjunction that is making it to where you need more information. So as an example here, after Jamie studied for his English test, Jamie is still our subject, studied is still our verb, he's still studying for the English test, but the conjunction after here is making this dependent. It needs more information. It depends on the idea of what happened after. After Jamie studied for his English test, he went and got pizza. He took a nap. You need more information. Okay, now keeping in mind independent and dependent clauses when we're looking at these three types of sentences. The first one is a simple sentence. Make sure you write down these formulas. They will greatly help you to understand the structure of these types of sentences. So simple sentence, it's one independent clause. As an example, the dog barks. We have a subject, we have a verb. Dog is a subject, barks is the verb. It's simple, it's to the point. Just because this is only three words, yes, it's a simple sentence, but there can be simple sentences that are really long that have lots of adjectives and prepositional phrases and have only one subject and verb or only one thought. Okay? But they are the easiest to figure out. The second type we have is a compound sentence. Okay, so the formula here is you have two independent clauses separated by a semicolon or a comma and a conjunction. Okay, so if it's using a semicolon, it's just a semicolon. Your other option is comma and a conjunction. Okay, so it would look like this, comma and. Fanboys are your conjunctions, specifically coordinating conjunctions. Write these down in your notes. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Those are the 7 coordinating conjunctions. When you find a comma and, you know it's joining two independent clauses. Okay, especially if, or actually only if it has the idea of subject and verb in each. Building again on this idea of the dog barking. The dog barks, comma, and he wags his tail. The first part, the dog barks, we know is independent from looking at the first simple sentence example. So it's got a subject, it's got a verb. But then the idea here is that we have the comma and. My suggestion is that you get used to circling the conjunctions so that you see them, so that you can visualize that idea of how it happens in the sentence. The second part of the sentence, and he wags his tail. He is our subject, wags is our verb. So we have subject verb, conjunction, subject verb. Okay? The intention is that you have two complete parts of information. If you did not have the comma and put a period here, you can have two complete sentences. In fact, you'd have two simple sentences. Okay? Beyond the idea of just circling conjunctions, I do suggest that you underline the subjects once and the verbs twice. So you're starting to visualize as you're going through. So underline dogs once, barks twice, circle the comma and, underline he once, underline wags twice. Okay, the next one we have is a complex sentence. This is different than compound and simple. It takes this idea that you want one independent clause and one or more dependent clause. So the intention here is we're looking for one independent, one dependent. Since the dog likes to bark, he needs to be calmed down. First of all, we need to figure out what is independent and what is dependent. Since we have the word since here, since the dog likes to bark, if we were to put a period here, it doesn't give us all of the information. So we know this is the dependent. Dog is the subject, likes is the verb. Since is your conjunction, specifically what we call a subordinate conjunction. I will provide you with a list of these in class tomorrow to look out and pay attention to. So since would be circled, dog underlined once, likes underlined twice. In our independent clause, we have he is our subject and needs as our verb. Okay, for practice, we have two different practices that we're going to do today as part of the video. So pause the video, write down the sentences, mark them in your notes, do underline the subject once, the verb twice, circle the conjunctions, and label them as either simple, compound, or complex. Go ahead and pause now, do this, and then I will wait a moment before I start lecturing on the next part. Okay, sentence structures. These are not, this is the idea of the arrangement of the words, and it's not just the idea of where the period is and if it's independent or dependent. It's the author wrote these in this way to get you to be able to pay attention to the emphasis that they're giving. So the first two we have here is this idea of anaphora and polysyndeton. You've never heard of these before. So these words might be a little weird. Don't worry, we're going to practice in class tomorrow. But keep in mind, you have to understand not only the example, but the effect it's having on the text itself. So anaphora, it's several words or phrases are used repeatedly to add an artistic effect. The intention here is we came, we saw, we conquered. So each phrase begins with the same word. We. You're paying attention now because you're looking at we here. You know that the word after it is even more important because the we is repeated several times. Okay, it is in its artistic effect. Okay, the next one, polysyndeton. This is when a sentence contains multiple coordinating conjunctions. Poly means many. And remember, coordinating conjunction is a fanboys in close succession, resulting in emphasis. As an example, I love to spend my time with my mother and father and brother and sister. Normally we don't speak like this. Normally we would say mother, comma, father, comma, brother, comma, and sister. But by adding in three ands in there, it slows the reader down. It gets you to take a breath for a moment. It gets you to add more words in there. So the effect that it has is that it's getting me to spend more time reading, so I have to slow it down. I have to look at what's going on in the text and in the story itself. Okay, the next one we have is a syndeton. This means no conjunctions. when using items in a series. So it's the opposite of polysyndeton. Okay, poly means many, the a means none. Okay, so that idea of that prefix in there. So an example, I like to spend time with my mother, father, brother, sister. It feels weird to us because we have no conjunctions in there, and like the polysyndeton, we don't normally speak like this. The effect here is the opposite of the polysyndeton where it slows you down. This one speeds you up. It's like you're racing, you're rushing, you're trying to get somewhere quickly. Okay, so it's that speed that's important. Okay, chiasmus is our last one here. Chiasmus is a mathematical formula. It's the reflective property A plus B equals B plus A. So the intention is the first half of the sentence is going to be in one order, then there's going to be a word or two, and then we're going to flip the order of the sentence. Okay, so looking at this, one should eat to live, not live to eat. So looking at this idea of eat and live, they're in this order. Eat is A, live is B. Not, it would be our equal sign. There again we have live, and there again we have eat. So we go A, B, B, A. So the idea it's reflecting in there. Okay, noticing the word chiasmus is not how it's pronounced, it's chiasmus. Okay, so those are your 4 sentence structures. Like we did with the previous ones for simple, compound, and complex, I want you to write these down. Pause before the video ends. I will let it play for a few moments more just in case. Write these down and label them as anaphora, polysyndeton, asyndeton, or chiasmus. And we will go over these in class tomorrow. Okay, see you in class tomorrow.